At the end of UFC 203, and specifically one fight on the main card, there will be two groups of fans, and one will feel justified, and the other will feel disappointed. I have a mad case of hiccups, and I've been waiting for them to pass, and it's just not happening. So I'm gonna go start anyway. And what I'm talking about is the CM Punk Mickey Gall fight, because what we have here is a WWE superstar, former WWE champion, stepping into the world of mixed martial arts without any actual combat experience, and he is taking on a guy who's 2-0, and obviously we've seen the footage. I'll give my prediction later in the show. We've seen the footage, we've heard about all the talk, and if CM Punk gets railroaded and destroyed, people are going to look at that and say, see, professional wrestling, it's not a sport, and for all intents and purposes, it's not a sport, it's sports entertainment. I was a huge WWE fan back in the day. WWE, the Attitude Era, big Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock fan, love those guys. WWE, ECW, WCW, all that stuff. But now we saw Brock Lesnar come into the show and do what he did. We saw Ken Shamrock go the other way and be successful. But that's not the same here. This is a professional wrestler with no combat experience stepping into the world of mixed martial arts and putting it on the line, saying, "Hey, let's have a fight and let's see how I do." And obviously, if CM Punk prevails, the WWE fans are going to point at it and say, see, look, we do have good fighters. We have guys that can bring it. There are the delusional ones out there who still believe it's real. There are the ones out there who, and I'm not denying they're fantastic athletes, but it's not the same thing. So just to see, obviously the UFC fans, it would be the same thing when James Toney lost to Randy Couture. They'll say, look, a boxing guy can't come into the octagon or into mixed martial arts and be successful without a full complement of skills. So we'll just have to see how this goes. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. On this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 203 event, which will take place on September 10th from Cleveland, Ohio, featuring Cleveland's own Stipe Miocic defending the UFC heavyweight title in the main event against Alistair Overeem. Boy, this is getting annoying with these hiccups. I will give you all my main card predictions on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks, and I believe there are 7 now with the fight being wiped off. They'll be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. The bet packs, again, it was disappointing. I won one bet pack. It was reduced because of the draw being voided out. So I won one. I had several that were just one-off again. And I reduced it for the last show. It's going to be full price for this show because, I got to eat too. I'm losing right there with you. But, you can see it's not like I'm getting blown out of the water every time. And when I do hit, it's massive. It'll pay off big time. So let's hope we turn it around here. So certainly consider buying those. You can pick them up for $12 a pop, or you can get the next 3 for $28 and save yourself $8. Polls are up for voting. Check them out. Please follow me on Twitter at Caio_predictions. And I'm going to go have a glass of water, and then we're going to do our first prediction. So let's get to it. The UFC 203 main card opens up in the women's strawweight division as the 6th-ranked Jessica Andrade, with a current record of 14 wins and 5 losses, takes on the 7th-ranked fighter in the division of Scotland, Joanne Jojo Calderwood, with a current record of 11 wins and 1 loss. The formerly ranked number 2 fighter when the Ultimate Fighter kicked off. Now, the winner of this fight positions themselves for a shot at the title. For Andrade, she's making just her second appearance in the division. For Calderwood, she's actually returning to 115 pounds after a one-fight stint in the non-existent 125-pound division where she fought Valerie Letourneau. It was just kind of a feeling out process the UFC had. It was a good fight, so we'll see where it goes from there. For Calderwood, she has just the one career loss, but also remember she was subbed by Rose on The Ultimate Fighter. She also had a very tough fight against Courtney Casey. At least it was tough in the early goings. She eventually turned things around and persevered and took the decision win there. For Andrade, she fought 7 times at bantamweight, which is remarkable considering how small she looks even at strawweight. She compiled a 4-3 record, including a 1-1 record in a mini-series with Raquel Pennington and a pair of very entertaining fights. She was submitted twice, and she is coming off a absolute destruction exclamation mark period of Jessica Penne at UFC 199, which was her divisional debut. Physically, JoJo 5 inches taller. She'll also have a 2-inch reach advantage. Andrade, though, is 6 years younger, and despite being significantly younger, she has 7 more pro fights than her Scottish opponent. Now, both girls have above-average knockout numbers for women's MMA. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule. Both have 5 knockouts each. Andrade does have 2 losses by knockout. And statistically, when you look at their striking numbers, very impressive. Andrade, 6.58 strikes landed per minute versus Jojo Calderwood, 7.35. Both get hit in the 4 strikes per minute range. I believe Calderwood's somewhere around 4.6, so a little bit higher than Andrade, but still a lot of output. They do take some strikes, but still you can see where their bread and butter is. Calderwood is 6-0 in the scorecard. She has that 1 loss by submission. Andrade has 6 wins by submission, 2 losses as well by sub, as I already mentioned, and she is 3-1 on the scorecards. Now, looking at the Brazilian first, she is an absolute berserker, high-volume striker, heavy-handed barrages, mainly hooks when she attacks, and she does not discriminate. She goes both the head and body and does it with violent intentions. When she fought Penne, she was very effective at closing the distance, backing her opponent to the cage, and just letting go with her hands. Very accurate, and she'll move forward behind punches, then she'll back off, and she just kind of resettles and looks for her next opportunity to attack. She will, and I like the way she does this, she'll start her combinations with shots to the body to force her opponent to cover up, and then boom, go to the head as well. She throws a nice leaping left hook, lots of rights as well. She'll throw them in succession if she feels she has her opponent hurt. She'll also slip in some elbow shots in close. Not a ton of volume strikes and very limited, kicking game we haven't seen from her, at least in recent fights. And when you look at Raquel Pennington, where Pennington was able to turn the tide in the first fight late, not enough to win the fight, and in the second fight she used short combinations to counter strike against Andrade, and it was very effective against Andrade's more wide-ranging punches. We will also see Andrade attempt some judo throws from the clinch, single leg slam. She can get under her opponent's base. She will shoot along the cage when she has her opponent backed up. She's very effective in there. She's very aggressive on the mat. Her guillotine submission is her signature go-to hold, and she has a tendency to sit a little bit low on her opponent's guard. That could be because of her lower stature, which is the reason she's opened up for some submissions. I think Marion Renault, if you remember, caught her off her back when she submitted her. Her conditioning, that was a big question, looked very good. In her last fight, she had slowed down a couple times at bantamweight. It's the key to maintaining her pace if she can't finish her opponent early, and that could have something to do with not having to move around and shove and grapple with a much larger woman. Now, for Calderwood, she comes from a Muay Thai background. She has a pro kickboxing background. Don't have the record offhand, but still, it's there. Throws a lot of kicks, front kick, body kick. She does a nice job leaning back when she throws that kick to avoid getting countered. She'll throw some switch kicks in there as well. We saw her hurt Letourneau with, I believe it was a push kick to the chest, into the chest-chin area. Against Letourneau, she looked much busier. Now, that could have been because she didn't have to cut quite as much weight to get down. I don't know, but she looked much more effective. She's recently made the switch to TriStar, which could have played a role as well. She will throw a lead left jab or lead left hook, step in straight right as well, and so she'll slip off to the side when she throws it. Also mixes in some spinning back fists, which she dropped Letourneau with when she landed one of them. Elbows and knees to the body in the clinch, very effective from that position. Unloads in the cage. She can do damage in a brawl, but we've also seen her get hurt. Courtney Casey cracked her with a couple of shots and appeared to stun her. And we also saw Sohee Ham have some success getting on the inside and landing some quick strikes. We have seen in the past Calderwood use the cage and takedowns to try and slow down her fighter if she's having some issues. Look for body lock and trip techniques. She had some success putting Letourneau on her back, and she's pretty good at holding position and doing some damage from the top there. Now, she was submitted, as I said, by Rose in the show and Marnia Moroz in her only professional loss. Both got her off her back, and Casey and Letourneau both attacked with similar armbar techniques. And I wonder if that's because Calderwood likes to try and posture up from the guard, and that leaves some opening where they can rotate their hips and attack. So we'll have to see if that plays a role. Andrade is more of a top position submission fighter. She likes to go. She'll go for that guillotine if she gets that opportunity, but she's not one. You don't see her do a lot of techniques with her legs, at least not at this level. One thing with Calderwood, she tends to move in straight lines, and that opens her to getting cracked with big strikes. I said she was rocked by Courtney Casey. She doesn't have a ton of great footwork or head movement. Sohee Ham landed a lot of strikes. She, getting tagged more than 4 strikes per minute. That's a big number, especially against a power puncher like Andrade. And once she gets back to the cage, she does take some damage, and that's what Andrade feasts upon. JoJo likes to be able to set up her offense. She can trade in close, but she can get hurt. She likes to have time. She is dangerous in the clinch, but she's, as I said, she's opening and crack with body shots, that overhand punch coming from a shorter fighter. I think Andrade is going to pressure her, going to outwork her. She's going to land big barrages. She's not going to stand at range and let JoJo do what she wants. And my prediction is Jessica Andrade to defeat JoJo Calderwood by TKO. Moving next to the UFC's bantamweight division, the former WEC featherweight champion, number 2 ranked fighter in the division, the California kid Faber returns to action. He's 33-9, taking on the 13th ranked Jimmie El Terror Rivera with a current record of 19 wins and 1 loss. As I said, he's 13th ranked in the division. So we've kind of the old guard versus the new guard coming in here. The rising prospect versus the well-established multi-time title challenger in Faber, who has had multiple opportunities to win the title, has not been able to do it. He has lost 4 UFC title fights, plus the last 3 WEC title fights he was in as well, since losing to the belt to Mike Browne. Rivera is coming off a win over Yuri Alcantara. He also beat Pedro Munoz, which is a very impressive victory. He is 3-0 in the UFC. Now, looking at Faber, he is 9-0 at bantamweight in the UFC in non-title fights. He is also 6-0 in career title fight letdown scenarios. Coming off losing a title fight, he is 6-0. That's a scenario we've talked about quite a bit in the past. So that is very impressive. Physically, Faber 2 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage. Rivera, though, 10 years younger, so a big gap there. And overall, Faber, 42 career fights. The guy's been around the block a couple of times. 7 wins by knockout, 19-0 in the scorecard, in fights ended by submissions. The guy's got a damn good submission game, offensively and defensively. 6-6 in decisions, though. Keep that in mind. For Rivera, he has 20 career fights, so certainly he's younger, but he's got experience. 4 wins by knockout, most of them coming recently. 2 submission wins, 13-1 in the scorecards. His only loss coming in his second pro fight, and it came via split decision. Now, Rivera, he comes from a high school wrestling background. He's a good volume striker. His output was his key to success against both Munoz and Alcantara. He now has shown more power of late. He had 3 straight knockouts coming into the Pedro Munoz fight where he hurt Munoz. He put down Marcus Brimage with some quick flurries. He had success hurting Munoz. I said he also stunned Alcantara on a couple of occasions. He throws short and crisp strikes. He will rip to the body, mixes in an uppercut, pretty good leg kicks as well, 2 to 3 punch combos, and he'll finish those combinations with a leg kick, which is very effective. Throws a nice straight right, will also mix in a right hook. Very quick with his hands, body kicks, side kick to the knee. He'll counter strike and be very effective. And if you come in and attack him, he looks to get back and just doesn't get 1 strike back. He gets 2 or 3 strikes back. He is willing to sit down and trade, which makes him very effective. Also opens up to getting hit a little bit. Cuts off the cage and pressures his opponents very effectively. Feints and fakes to really break his opponent's rhythm up and constantly show that threat. So far in the UFC, at least up until the Alcantara fight, he uses wrestling defensively. But we have seen him in the past, and in that fight, use takedowns to help him win decisions. He used it against Alcantara in 2 of the rounds to finish the round on top and really seal that decision victory for him. Talking about wrestling now, Faber, Team Alpha Male leader, former NCAA Division I wrestler, has an absolute smothering top game. He will attack from the guard and really bust guys up. He's all about those submissions. I said 19 wins by submission, lots of chokes, guillotine, and rear naked choker is 2 go-to finishers. But the key to beating him so far, especially in decisions, has been wrestling, specifically. There's another thing about wrestling. Defend his takedowns or out-wrestle him, land more takedowns. He has been outlanded in his 8 losses by a total of 21 takedowns for his opponent, 4 for him. Shut out in 5 of those fights. So that's impressive. But then again, that's fighting at the top of the game against guys like Kenan Brown and Dominic Cruz. He thrives also when he's the faster fighter. He's not a high-volume striker by any stretch of the imagination. That gap has significantly closed. He outlands his opponent by exactly 0.09 strikes per minute. But again, keep in mind, those numbers are being skewed by big, high-profile fights against the top of the division that you just can't beat. When Faber is striking, though, he needs to be the faster striker. If he's not the better wrestler, he has to be the faster striker. It's a combination of the two that he can work in sync. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's just one, and that's how he gets by. He throws a nice right hand. He'll work a left jab to the body. He'll also lead with a left hook. Inside leg kicks. A lot of single strikes. He tends to run into his strikes a little bit, and that can, cost him. Lots of movement. He keeps his opponents guessing. He was getting cracked with some big shots from Rivera, though, who was having some success countering and landing some big punches. It just wasn't enough, and unfortunately that fight didn't get to flesh out until when we saw the eye poke led to the eventual rear naked choke. Or it was a bulldog choke or a neck crank. I think it was a bulldog choke. There's a lot of debate about that. Now, Faber has had a massive run close to the top of the division without winning the title. Second loss to Dominic Cruz probably did him in as far as future title shots are concerned, unless TJ Dillashaw wins the title, and then they look for that Faber-Dillashaw grudge match, which certainly the UFC would probably love to do. It seemed like after the Cruz fight he was close to calling it a career. He is 37 years old. He'll be 38 in May, so that is very old for a lighter division. His style, as we've talked about, doesn't translate well to decisions unless he can utterly dominate with his wrestling. He's not going to outpoint guys in the feet. He doesn't have massive power. He did hit Frankie Saenz, but he needs to be dominant with his wrestling and mix that in, or just, outclass an opponent entirely on the feet. But he doesn't have that style that's really going to do that against a capable striker. I think Rivera's going to use his speed here. He's going to use that counter wrestling to keep this fight standing. Look for him to outwork Faber on the feet. Use that speed and push him backwards. Don't allow moments of inactivity so Faber can set up that quick strike offense. I think this is a very tough fight. I was a little bit shocked that Faber opened as the underdog. I believe he will be the favorite by the time we actually get to bell times. People start seeing that and dumping money on him because he's a top level wrestler, fighter. No denying that. Jimmie Rivera right now is rolling. He looks very good. I think he lands better strikes more often. And my prediction is Jimmie Rivera to defeat Urijah Faber by decision. Moving along now to the UFC's welterweight division, we get the fight that a lot of people have been talking about for various reasons. Phil Brooks, better known as CM Punk. He's already talked about he's going to go by CM Punk because that's the name that brought him to prominence, with a record of 0 wins, 0 losses, and 0 draws, both as a professional and as an amateur. He's taking on Mickey Gall, who is 2-0 coming into this fight. Now, as I said, Punk is making his MMA debut at any level. He signed on with the UFC back in 2014, had several setbacks and injuries en route to his debut, no formal combat background, which I talked about in my intro, no formal combat background whatsoever. He is bringing a lot of interest to the show. He's bringing that wrestling crowd in, similar to Brock Lesnar, but his background is not similar to Brock Lesnar. Again, we've talked about that. If you don't live under a rock and you're in the MMA community, you know all about this. For Mickey Gall, he's coming off that Looking for a Fight show with Dana White, where he called out CM Punk. They went and handpicked him. Then he won his debut in the UFC. He's 2-0 as pro after that successful debut. He did have a couple amateur fights as well. Both guys are 6'2". We're fighting at welterweight. There's been a lot of talk of Punk cutting weight. He's over 200 pounds. I think somebody said 203 pounds a week out. He's probably, absolutely, he's a professional. He's made test cuts down to 170 pounds. He would be an absolute idiot not to. For Gall, he is 14 years younger. That's ridiculous. Punk is 38 years old. Not only is he coming with no combat sports, he's pushing 40. There's a lot of guys who have been around the sport for a long time who are not making they get more wear and tear on them, but they're not making a go when they're pushing 40. Punk's 38. For Gall, BJJ blue belt. Submission skills look pretty decent. He's very confident. A very confident young man. Is he overconfident? Is that going to cost him? We'll see. As I said, he has 2 pro bouts lasting a total of 3 minutes and 38 seconds, so not a lot of cage time. Both wins coming by rear naked choke. He also went 3-0 as an amateur fighter. In his debut, he landed a very hard right hand, punched, dropped his opponent, worked to the back, trapped the arm with the leg, which is a nice technique, and locked in that rear naked choke to end it relatively quickly. For CM Punk, he's been training with Duke Rufus Sport MMA Academy. That's the home of the Pettis brothers, Ben Askren, a number of top flight fighters that he can train alongside and get himself going. I have watched the footage of CM Punk. He looks very stiff and raw. The promos tend to show him struggling. It has that almost overcoming adversity type feeling. And we've heard a lot of the rumors about how much he struggled in sparring sessions and training and going toe-to-toe with other fighters. And I'm not talking high-level fighters. I'm talking, guys that are relatively new to the sport. He's had a lot of issues there. Now, there are 2 schools of thought on what we've seen so far and what we've heard. One, he's not that good. He actually is really struggling. And it's pretty much it's put up or shut up time. He couldn't just back out. That would look bad. That lack of combat background, his age, all a major issue. Or the other scenario is he is actually better than what is being shown. People are going to tune in looking to see him fail and be disappointed when he actually comes up and puts up a good front. And on the same side, his fans will tune in and be like, yeah, look how good he's doing. So it's kind of that, we're not going to show you what we don't want you to know what to. We want you to question what you're going to see and actually want to tune in to see how he's going to do. If he looked really good, it's not, the intrigue disappears. If people are like, oh God, he looks fantastic, he's going to smoke him. But if he looks really rough around the edges, people go, oh, I want to see how he fares. I want to see him get beat. I want to see what he actually brings to the cage. Me, I'm tending to lead to the first scenario. This is a different world. Even if Gall is just 2-0 and he's a turned pro in 2015, he has been training, developing those various aspects of his craft, his combat craft, if you will. Gall also, he has his debut under the belt, which is a big factor. He is young, maybe too young to know he needs to be a little bit nervous for this fight. Those debut jitters could be long gone behind him. For Punk, as I said, he's debuting in the UFC and MMA altogether. There's tons of pressure going on. That stigma, he knows all about it that comes with being a pro wrestler, but he does have big show experience. Not the same scenario, but it certainly can be drawn upon. He has performed in front of massive crowds before. He knows what it's like to get in front of people and a large audience and go to work, and that's what he'll be doing here. It's really hard to make a prediction based on no actual MMA cage time. No, nothing. Sparring isn't the same thing. As much as they want to say it is, it's not the same thing. Gall's grappling for me should be the difference here. Either he takes Punk down or he knocks him down. A lot of the footage we've seen Punk not looking good on the mat. I give mad respect for Phil, for CM Punk, for taking his shot, and maybe building this experience, and he picks up a win in a future fight if he opts to continue on. Maybe this is a one-and-done scenario, even though he signed a multi-fight contract. He says, look, I tried it. It didn't work out. I gave it my best shot. My prediction is Mickey Gall to defeat CM Punk by submission. We move now to the co-main event of the evening. It's a rematch. It's the heavyweight division. The former heavyweight champion, number 1 ranked Fabricio by Cavallo Werdum, 20 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw, takes on the 7th ranked Hapa, Travis Browne, with a current record of 18 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Now, this fight was originally scheduled to be between Fabricio Werdum and Ben Rothwell. Rothwell pulled out on August 11th, so Browne has had roughly a month to prepare. He fought at UFC 200 most recently. For Werdum, he is coming off that heavyweight title fight loss. He was obliterated and absolutely knocked out by the Miocic. Dropped the belt in his first official attempt at defending. He did win the interim title against Mark Hunt and then went on to solidify the belt by defeating the champion, Cain Velasquez. But still, this was his first official title fight, and he lost it. For Browne, instead, he's coming off a loss at UFC 200 to Cain Velasquez via TKO. He has alternated wins and losses over his last 6 fights. Now, this is a rematch from 2014. That led to Werdum eventually getting that title shot. It seems like it was ages ago these two fought originally. He picked up a nice win. It was actually an upset victory as he was a plus 215 underdog at his height. So certainly a nice victory there. Browne, he had won 3 fights in a row coming into that matchup and was 7-1-1 to start his UFC career before losing to Werdum. Since, including the Werdum loss, he is 2-3. For Fabricio, since beating Browne, he's gone 2-1. 3 wins to start his UFC career before the Browne fight, 9-1 prior to dropping the belt. That was a pretty impressive run. Biggest surprise in the first fight was that Werdum dominated the striking exchanges. The general thought was that Werdum was going to look to get the fight to the mat, which he did at times, and dominate there, and Browne was going to want to keep it standing up and look to knock him out. Did not happen. Stats in that fight: Werdum outlanded Browne 121 to 60 strikes. That was significant strikes. Unbelievable. He also landed 2 takedowns and took some momentum there. It was the best output of Verdum's career, UFC, Strikeforce, and Pride. Next best was his win over Roy Nelson, 91 strikes, which happened just before that fight. Now, a lot of credit for Werdum's success has been given to Rafael Cordeiro and Kings MMA for really rounding him out and making him a multifaceted MMA fighter. For Browne, interestingly enough, his current struggles have been directly connected to his move to Glendale Fighting Club, or Academy, I remember which one, and Edmund Tarverdian, who's taken a lot of heat. And the record that Tarverdian's fighters have been boasting, not good. Not good at all. But so very interesting two juxtaposition scenarios there. For Werdum, in that fight against Stipe, he was overconfident. Very overconfident, if you will. Coming into that matchup, took some bombs versus Hunt, very reckless. It seemed like against Hunt and against Miocic, where he was kind of the favorite, the front runner, he was very confident. Against Cain Velasquez, very focused, and fought a much different fight. Now, looking at the first fight between Browne and Fabricio, Browne apparently suffered a number of injuries: broken hand, ribs, dislocated foot. Again, there's a lot of talk you hear after the fighter loses the fight. But still, if it happened, it happened. And there were moments where you saw that, especially the ribs, it could have definitely gone down. Browne, in that fight, came out throwing a lot of kicks. Low kicks, head kicks, front kicks. Werdum was using fast hands to counter-strike. Browne actually hurt him early. Then did some big ground and pound. Werdum was trying to work his grappling. Eventually got the fight to the ground, and Browne got back up. But that was a big exchange early on that kind of favored Hapa in that scenario. Now, Werdum landed an absolutely blistering body kick, and you saw Browne pat his side and kind of say, yeah, I'm fine. But you could tell, usually when fighters do that, it's just like the smile, they're hurt. Maybe that's where the broken rib kicked in. And it really started to change the complexion of that matchup. Werdum found more success once he pushed Browne to the cage and started landing some big shots, threw more volume, really pushed the pace, and Browne was significantly slowing down, sucking a lot of wind after that. He looked very tired in round 2. He was coming forward with offense, but not landing. And the cardio for Werdum, it looked good. He was still landing strikes and moving well, despite the fact that he was tired as well, but he was being far more effective. We saw Browne covering up a lot on the cage, getting banged up there, getting tagged to the body and head, and really Fabricio mixing up his strikes very effectively. So, fast forward to today. How does each man win this fight? For Browne, he needs to go back to using his kicks. more effectively, but use those kicks and his movement and his speed to keep the fight at distance. Paw with his left to disrupt any forward motion. He does it a lot. He reaches out and paws and keeps guys backing up. Paw with his left to disrupt that forward motion and pressure that Fabricio wants to bring, and use that counter right hand as Fabricio comes in. Keep his back off the cage, that's key, but use that counter right hand to time Fabricio when he tries to rush in and crack him with it. We saw him do damage in multiple fights with that before. Werdum, he can't give away free strikes. He's not afraid to throw anything, but he's not afraid to go to the ground. And we've seen him against Alistair Overeem back in Strikeforce, against Mark Hunt. Again, these guys rush in and just say, if they hit me, I'm going to fall to my back and lure guys. He caught Faber like that. I'm going to lure guys in. But the thing is, he can't be careless with his chin. At heavyweight, all it takes is one shot, and you're no longer the world heavyweight champion. And that's what happened to him. His volume is the key. Land more strikes. Push Fabricio, or push Travis Browne. Back him up against that cage. Cut off and just keep attacking. I don't like the way Fabricio walked right into the right hand against Stipe while pushing forward. He kept coming and eventually got knocked out. He got cracked with the right hand moments before and opted to continue that pursuit and got lit up again with another right hand. And Hunt hit him with the right hand as well, cracked him with a big right hand early in that fight as well. And you look at that and you go, well, I get it. You're fearless. But there's a difference between fearless and careless. Keep in mind, Fabricio Werdum is almost 40 years old. He's coming off a brutal knockout, the second knockout loss of his career. He's also coming off that title fight scenario, that title fight letdown scenario. We saw Holly Holm have it. The rematch is a rematch to a fight that Werdum won handily. Is he overconfident coming in? Browne is looking to rebound from that loss to Cain Velasquez where he didn't look good. It got mauled by a very motivated Cain Velasquez. I think Browne's going to use his kicks here, maintain that distance. He uses a lot of that front kick to the body, very effective. I think he's going to catch Werdum rushing in. He's going to land that right hand that other people have had success with. And my prediction is a bit of an upset here. We're taking Travis Browne to defeat Fabricio Werdum by knockout. Now, in the main event of the evening, we have the heavyweight title on the line as the aforementioned reigning champion, Stipe Miocic. 15 wins and 2 losses. Stipe Miocic, we'll go with Miocic. 15 wins, 2 losses. Takes on the challenger, the third-ranked Alistair, the Overeem, with a current record of 41 wins, 14 losses, and 1 no contest. Now, Overeem is finally getting the title fight that many expected him to earn very early in his UFC career when he first came over and obliterated Brock Lesnar. Miocic has developed from an undercard fighter where he fought Joey Beltran in his debut, worked through several setbacks, including losses to Stefan Struve and Junior Dos Santos, to eventually get the title shot and winning. He is 9-2 in the UFC. He has had three fight winning streaks, including the one he's on right now. Obviously, those winning streaks came to an end with single losses. Is that what we're in store for now? For Overeem, as I said, he beat Brock Lesnar in his debut, then lost back-to-back fights to Bigfoot Silva, an upset I predicted, and Travis Browne. Beat Frank Mir, got knocked out by Ben Rothwell. But he has now won 4 in a row, 3 of them by knockout. And in the Frank Mir fight, he seemed to be changing the way he approached. And the Rothwell was just kind of a setback, and he's currently rallied from that. For Overeem, the man has 56 pro fights. That's a lot of pro fights. Former Dream and Strikeforce champs, as well as a K1 champion. 18 wins by knockout, 19 wins by submission, 4-3 in the scorecards. He has 9 losses by KO, or TKO. Big knockout numbers. 2 losses by submission, so the man can be finished. For Stipe, 11 wins by knockout, 1 loss on his record by knockout against Stefan Struve, 1 submission victory, which came from leg kicks early in his career. He's 3-1 on the scorecards. Both men, big heavyweights, 6'4", 80-inch reach on both sides. Overeem, he has trimmed down significantly. Both should weigh in around 240 pounds. Overeem might have 3 or 4 pounds on the champ. Stipe, just 2 years younger, despite the fact he has significantly less wear and tear on him coming into this fight. Now, Overeem, during his current resurgence, has showed a much more paced and calculated approach, more defense, especially in round 1. Conserves that gas tank, gets hit less, gets to see what his opponent has to offer, maybe picks up, lands a big counter and ends the fight, doesn't open himself up. He's shown himself very hard to hit, his hands are up and out, very, that defensive stance, difficult and dangerous front to attack. 23 strikes absorbed is the most he's ever get hit in any of his UFC fights. Some of them because he got hurt early and finished, others because he's just damn hard to hit. Big knees is one of his biggest weapons, especially in the clinch and at range, but he's very effective at pinning his opponent along the cage and really turning that knee over and driving it into his opponent's midsection. He also is very effective at pulling his opponent's head down into his knee strikes to really, he's very strong and able to really frame up those strikes, those techniques, and, double and triple up the impact and the what it does to his opponent's body. He also throws a lot of kicks. That front kick, oblique kick, body kicks, head kicks. He'll throw a nice straight right to the body, big overhand right up top. He threw a left hook that dropped Junior Dos Santos in that fight. He switches stances up a lot, shifts his hips to force his opponent to react. Eventually, trying to land that counter straight left as Junior Dos Santos moved forward. He's a very calculated striker. Now, when he fought Ben Rothwell, he was getting cracked when he tried to open up an attack at close range. He was overextending a little bit, trying to land a straight left, which opened him up. He eventually ducked into an uppercut that Rothwell hurt him with and was dropped with the right hand and eventually finished during an exchange. Against Andrei Arlovski, he was covered up and kind of had to weather that early storm as Andrei blitzed him and didn't get enough through to finish the fight, but certainly you could see there were some tense moments, especially I had Overeem in that fight, and I paid a lot of money when he won, so it's certainly on pins and needles when that scenario was playing out. For Stipe, the champion, he moves very well, very quick for a heavyweight, cuts angles, good combinations, and I watched Robin Black's breakdown. Always enjoyable. I love the way he breaks fights down, and the vocabulary he uses is just fantastic. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. And I'm paraphrasing here, but move, plant, rip, basically, is what we look at. Moves, plants his, gets into a position he wants to be in, plants his foot, and then fires a strike. And that makes him that much more dangerous because the opponent's not ready for him to make that move, and then a quick strike offense with a lot of pop behind it. As I said in the last breakdown, he caught Fabricio Werdum with 2 counter rights to finish that fight. One that kind of stunned him, and then one that finished him as he came forward a few seconds later, actually. He has big pop in that right hand, solid. He throws a lot of 1-2 with the left hook, straight right combination, left jab. He's also, and he'll throw some decent low kicks we saw against Fabricio early on as well. One thing with Stipe, it's diversity. He adds that wrestling threat, fake a shot and punch. Jab his way into range and actually look for takedowns. We saw him take out Mark Hunt on the mat. He also, rest his peace, took out Shane Del Rosario as well in a similar fashion. He landed 6 takedowns in the Hunt fight. He landed 113 significant strikes, 89 versus Junior Dos Santos, 106 versus Nelson. He is diverse and he is constant in his attack, makes him very effective. But in that Del Rosario fight, and that's a long time ago, but I'm bringing it up because it's one of the few times we saw a fighter have a lot of success against him with a technique not a lot of guys have used. He was going to the body with kicks. And Miocic he didn't know how to deal with them. That was a long time ago, but still it's something that Overeem could look to employ here, is target that body, especially with those knees, and see how Stipe responds. Stipe also tends to come in at times with his hands a little bit low, and he will slow down. He gets a little bit wild at times, especially if he thinks he has someone hurt. He'll let loose with his left hand quite frequently if he gets in close and try and land it in succession. When you look how these two fighters want this fight to play out, the challenger wants his opponent to hesitate. Overeem wants to be very defensive and force his opponent to not, to be unsure as to how to attack. Don't show them anything. Counter, blitz at times, but be very stoic steadfast, if you will, in his defensive front. He has been hurt when his opponent is able to get on the inside. Rothwell hurt him, knocked him out eventually. Roy Nelson buzzed him, knocked him out. They got in close. They landed short combinations inside that defensive front. For Stipe, he has been hurt before. Junior clipped him. Obviously, Stefan Struve took him out, but he should have the better chin. He can't take too much damage. No one wants to get hit too much from Overeem. But those body shots are key. He's got to watch those body shots coming from the challenger. He can't afford to let those pile up. I look to see Miocic work his way to the inside, let his combinations go. Don't be afraid to change levels for takedowns. Watch that guillotine if he does shoot in. But set up his strikes with his takedowns if necessary. Have Overeem thinking about constant, different areas that are constantly under threat of attack. At heavyweight, anything can happen with one strike. It's hard to retain your title, especially hard to retain at multiple opportunities. Stipe is trying to defend his title for the first time. I think he uses footwork here and speed to avoid Overeem's early minimalistic attack. He's going to force Overeem's not going to land much early on. And it's going to result in Overeem having to overextend himself if he does want to get that offense going. I think we're going to see Stipe either land a counter strike when Overeem comes in, or we are going to see him get on the inside and land combinations and land short strikes and eventually clip Alistair and bring back those chin issues. And my prediction is Stipe Miocic to retain his UFC title, and he's going to do it by defeating Alistair Overeem by knockout. So those are my 5 UFC 203 main card predictions. As I said, all 7 predictions for the prelims will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Go in, vote in the polls. Hit me up on Twitter, KO_predictions. So I try and live stream or live tweet as much as possible, but obviously there's a lot of the fight that goes on where my kids, it's bedtime and all that fun stuff, so it's just very difficult to live tweet when I've got a kid in my arm or, you know, feeding him a bottle or whatever. So I do my best, but daddy comes first. Buy the vet packs if you're interested. Obviously, it's been a little bit of downtime. I certainly showed signs of training out. It's been like one, and I try and shorten things up and diversify my bets a little bit, but it just seems like I can't get that one extra or that one final leg to come through that would pay off huge. It's going to happen. It happens all the time. It's going to happen. I'm not too concerned with it. It will happen. A lot of good betting options on this card. They just posted a line not that long ago, so I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. And time to get those prelim predictions. This video will be up shortly, so take care and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.